Good afternoon, folks. I'd ask that you take your seats. We are going to get underway. This event, for your information, will be live streamed. And so to that end, we would ask you to please silence your cell phones if you can. Also, to remain in your seat throughout the event. That will be quite helpful. You'll note that there's media at the back of the room, where they will remain for most of the program, except for when they come closer to record the official submission of the report. Now, having just asked you to remain in your seats, would you please stand while we welcome the entrance of the dignitaries, participants, and the Council of Parties. Would you all please remain standing for the entrance of His Honor, the Honorable Arthur J. LeBlanc, Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia. Please remain standing just a little longer. please remain standing and join together in the singing of O Canada, followed by Lift Every Voice. The words will be up on the screen for the first two verses.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you to Owen Lee for leading us and for his gift of music. It reminds us of the importance of lifting our voices together for what is just and right. The African United Baptist Association played a central role throughout the history of the home. It is then fitting that we invite the Reverend Dr. Rhonda Britton, current moderator of the AUBA, to open our proceedings today with a prayer.
Thank you. This is very fitting today, as this is called the Journey to Light, and we begin in the Christian church to observe the season of Advent, our journey towards the light. And so Advent brings with it the gifts of hope and peace and joy and love. And these are the attributes and the gifts that we hope that everyone will enjoy and embody. I am a Baptist minister, so I will pray in my Christian tradition. Let us pray. Gracious and loving Lord, we thank you for loving us with an everlasting and unconditional love. We thank you that you made a way for humankind to be reconciled to you. Now you have given us the ministry of reconciliation. You call us to be your witnesses by extending your mercy, your grace, your forgiveness, and your love to all others. You call us to live the good news of Christ by serving one another and always seeking the best for others. You call us to embody your truth, remembering that your truth sets captives free. Thank you for the work of this body and the desire for both justice and healing. Our prayer is that the work done will accomplish its purpose, and that those who have suffered harm will be healed. We pray for vulnerable people everywhere. Protect them from evil. Give those in places of power and authority hearts of compassion and a conscience to do good. Work in us, merciful God, that we might do that which is good and pleasing in your sight, upholding the dignity and humanity of all peoples. We pray in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Britton. You may be seated. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jake McIsaac. I am the proud grandson of a former resident of the home. It's been a privilege and honor to have participated and provided some support to the work of the Restorative Inquiry for the Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children. I will be the facilitator of the ceremony today. As we begin our program this afternoon, I want to acknowledge and express gratitude that we are gathered here in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. The inquiry has been led by commissioners who have worked together as a council of parties to guide and facilitate the work of the inquiry. They represent former residents, former home board members, members of the African Nova Scotian community, the AUBA, the government, and other experts. You will have noticed the members of the council of parties placed several important symbols on the center table as they entered this afternoon. The kente cloth, the Sankofa talking piece, the center candle, and the final report and video series. We will learn more about these symbols and the work of the inquiry this afternoon. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce the commissioners who have formed the Council of Parties to lead the Restorative Inquiry. I would invite the council to stand, and I will introduce them starting from the far side of the stage. Tony Smith, Pamela Williams, Gerald Morrison, Deborah Emerson, George Gray, Jean Flynn, Wayne Hamilton, Jennifer Llewellyn, Dean Smith, Mike Dahl. You will notice there's an empty seat among them, with a tam resting on it. This is to remember Joan Jones, who was a commissioner until her passing this year. Joan was an invaluable member of the Council of Parties, and her presence is certainly felt throughout the report and here today. In addition to the final written report, which shares the work of the Restorative Inquiry, the Council of Parties also collaborated with filmmaker Sylvia Hamilton to share its work through a series of 5 videos. These videos will be available after today on the Inquiry website, restorativeinquiry.ca. The first of those videos introduces the history of the Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children and the former residents' journey to light. Here it is.
Fun,
Pure,
inquisitive,
sharing, innocent,
valuable,
history makers,
happy,
harmless,
vulnerable,
family.
precious.
I think of all of that when I think of children.
We use a wooden statue of the Sankofa as our talking piece. It's a bird looking backwards with an egg in its beak. Sankofa teaches us that we must go back to our roots so that we can achieve our full potential as we move forward.
This is Nova Scotia, a province on the east coast of Canada. People of African descent have lived here for hundreds of years in communities around the province. African Nova Scotian children in need were not always permitted entry into white orphanages. Often, they were left destitute and vulnerable. The Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children was established in 1915 by a private member's bill to provide care and service to Black children in need. The home received support from key community organizations such as the African Baptist Association. The provincial government purchased land for the facility in the Westfall area of Dartmouth. More than 1,000 people gathered for the official opening on June 6, 1921. A voluntary board of trustees with ties to the provincial government governed the home. This residential facility, designed to house and care for infants to late adolescents, was situated on a large acreage that included a commercial farm. Poultry barns, a piggery, cows, and field crops brought in revenue for the home's operation. By 1948, resident children took their classes at a newly built segregated school on the home's acreage. Before this, schooling took place within the facility itself. The exclusion of Black children from orphanages fit the widespread historical pattern of systemic racism in all sectors of Nova Scotian society. From denial of jobs, housing, services in restaurants or movie theaters, to segregation in education. This was the harsh reality of what it meant to be Black in Nova Scotia. The home's mission was intended to serve and protect Black children. It was a source of pride. Government funding, extensive fundraising, and farm revenue provided its financial base. Children were placed from across Nova Scotia and on occasion from other maritime provinces. Throughout the history of the home, there were troubling conditions and circumstances in its operation. Many of the staff had little training in childcare, and government oversight was lacking.
I worked in and out of the chicken house, getting eggs from the chickens. I can't remember eating an egg in the home. One was working in the field, picking carrots, and not allowed to eat a carrot or get a drink of water until after I filled the cart full of carrots.
There were certain things that they did to make us feel special. And one of the things for me was the cook would call me the bread and butter boy. Because we were always hungry, you know. That's a whole different thing about not being fed properly. So I would go to her as often as I could and ask her if there's any chores that she would like me to do. And she would say yes. Some days it would be no. But when she said yes, she said, "Thank you very much," and I'll go outside by the window and she'll sneak me a piece of bread and butter. And I always remember that because as badly as we were treated by some staff, we were treated very well by others. And it gave us a little sense of hope.
Well, my memory is piano lessons. I liked piano lessons, which was one good thing about being there. I did like the piano lessons. Other than that, nothing else.
Used to have the kids all do sing-songs and stuff, and so I used to play the piano, and we just sit around the piano and sing songs. And I loved going to school.
The children who lived at the home were not always singing. There was darkness in the home. Many children suffered physical, emotional, and sexual abuse.
One of my memories was being slapped in the face and stuff. That was being the way I was treated and stuff. And so I just want to, and also one of my biggest memories too was watching my siblings being taken away out of there. 3 of them got taken got adopted, taken down in Caledonia for a while, and then they got adopted into New Jersey. And that was a heartbreaker, because who'd ever thought, but we did get to see them after 48 years. We did get in contact. So one of my biggest memories is losing my siblings.
Because before this, I would never speak about the home. I never spoke about it to anybody. Anybody that I knew, and people say how you grew up and everything. I didn't want to say, well, I was separated from my family. When I was young, we were ripped apart. Our whole family was, there's 8 of us children. And my mother did her best. She did her best to look after us and bring us up. But then social services, they stepped in and just decided, well, we know what's best for the kids. Just take them all and put them in the colored home, because they didn't want to help my mother take care of us. And so when financially, she was having a hard time. So it was their decision, just take them, just scoop them all up, and I'll never, ever forget that day when they came and took us all. And I'm the oldest out of 8 children, so I will never forget that day.
It was clear that largely well-intentioned systems and people had failed the most vulnerable children, and had failed to understand the experience of those children, their families, their communities. And it resulted in a tragedy that marred, really, child welfare in Nova Scotia.
Institutionalized and systemic racism has played a part in what happened at the home, and our siloed way of working is or can be a breeding ground to allow things like institutionalized racism and systemic racism to continue, and because it goes unchecked. If we're kind of fragmented in how we respond to things, and if we have not created an environment where people are comfortable to raise their hand, to flag that something is wrong here, to speak truth, then I think those are the situations in which things like institutionalized racism can flourish and kind of fester.
You look at what were some of the things that led to this. So you look at poverty, you look at why we were being placed there, you look at why were we taken from some of our communities because they didn't meet the Eurocentric standards or things of that nature. So it's learning those things to ensure that that never happens again. But most importantly is that the healing for us former residents, the healing for staff that were there, because not all staff treated us badly.
I believe our community, the African Nova Scotian community, lives under a culture of silence. Because society in general paints us with the same brush, and it's a negative brush. So to add more pain to those strokes, to take responsibility for the pain of little children, to know even that may not have been you, but my aunt, uncle, cousin, father, mother may have been part of that, the shame, the guilt, the trying to make sense of it in your own mind.
Well, I do think that, our community tends to keep things hush-hush because I don't think we want to bring shame or blame onto other people in our community, or we don't want the wider community to think that we've done such things in our community. For instance, I was a resident of the home for almost 14 months, and my grandmother came to get me when I was 2 years old to take me to live with her, but she never ever told me that I had been a resident in the home. And I didn't know until I was almost in my, I'd say, late teens. And that's part of our community, and, code of silence.
was just an opportunity for us to get together because we didn't know a lot of each other, and we were there at different decades, and we were trying to look at how we were going to move forward to receive justice. And at the time, the eldest was 86. A lot of stress and anxiety, a lot of pain that people have suffered for a lot of years, and you can really see it in their bodies. And slowly but surely, as we went around, we started talking and sharing our stories. We got to be stronger, and we found our voices. And there's a lot of singing, crying, praying, and hoping that someday we would get justice and not live the shame and guilt.
And while we were there, the elders that were amongst us again said, we may not be here to have our voices heard. We want you guys to continue to share our stories, wherever it matters, wherever it has meaning, share our stories, make sure our voices are not lost through this process. So as a result, we formalized Voices, which is the Victims of Institutional Childhood Exploitation Society.
Honesty.
Love.
Future.
Important.
Life.
No racism.
Joy.
Everybody's equal in your job.
Opportunity.
Fun. Innocence. Yeah.
The restorative inquiry was designed to be a different way forward. This different way forward started with the former residents' commitment to one another as they traveled together over the past 2 decades on their journey to light. The different way forward came about because of bravery and persistence of the former residents. They raised their voices, daring to speak about that which for so long had been unspeakable. In doing so, they broke the silence that had been held for generations about their experiences in the home. When they spoke, they were often met with silence, and when they felt silenced, it was sometimes by authorities and in the community. The inquiry has helped us understand that the silence was born of fear, protectiveness, love, and pain. Yet the former residents persisted. Silent no more, they spoke of past harms and their commitment to a journey to light for a better future. They spoke in ways that invited others from the community and the government to add their voices to join in this journey to light. Former residents joined together as voices, victims of institutional child exploitation society, to advocate for and support former residents, and to ensure their voices would be central to the response and the way ahead. I want to invite the 3 former residents who founded and have provided leadership to Voices, Tracy Dorrington Skinner, Tony Smith, and Jerry Morrison, to share with us the core commitments that have guided the journey to light.
When the former residents started our journey, we knew it would require a different way forward. It required people to support one another in doing better, in being better together. This is why Voices invited others to join in our journey, so that we can travel together and support one another on the road ahead. when we former residents first met together in 2012 for our retreat, to support one another on our journey to light, we used this Sankofa. We used that Sankofa as our talking piece to remind us that it is not taboo to go back and fetch it. That's what we need for forward movement. Sankofa is represented by a bird. Its feet are facing forward. Its neck is reaching back to gather an egg in its beak to bring it toward the future. And this has been the work of the restorative inquiry. It has enabled us all to come together and to look back, to learn, to understand what we need in order to move forward.
As former residents who have been part of this restorative inquiry, we have been humbled and amazed by the response to our invitation. When we came together with others, including the community and the government, to design the inquiry, we named ourselves after the Afrocentric principle, Ujima, meaning collective work and responsibility. We welcomed all those who came in the spirit on the journey with us. We committed that we would leave no one behind if they are committed to building and maintaining a community of shared responsibility and work to learn and understand and solve our problems together. Just as we promised each other as former residents that we would move forward together, we invited others to join us on our journey to light. The restorative inquiry was open and made space for those who want to be part of this journey. And many answered this invitation. Many of you here today have been a part of this work together.
The former residents also have been committed to find a different way forward to do no further harm. And we promised each other, and we kept our commitment when we dealt with others. Our way is not about naming, blaming, or shaming. It is an extended invitation to those who have been harmed, those who have the responsibility related to that harm, and others who hold responsibility for future to come together in a commitment to help to do no further harm. Through the restorative inquiry, we work to find different ways forward by learning, understanding, not through blame. Through the inquiry, we also have shown how, if we work together, move forward from isolation to connection, from silence to dialogue, from darkness to light. This is what is needed to keep doing if we continue to travel forward in this inquiry on this journey to light. Thank you.
The former residents' voices have been heard, and through this journey, it is no longer just our voices we are calling for a different way forward. The journey to light is no longer ours to travel alone. We need to continue to travel forward together in this different way. Thank you.
The restorative inquiry was different in its approach, as it invited those parties involved to play active and committed roles within the process and in the work that flowed from the inquiry. At the beginning of the inquiry, several parties committed to be partners in this work and signed a statement of commitment to symbolize their willingness to be part of the journey to light. Along the way, the restorative inquiry has invited others to join this journey. Today, we've invited representatives from some of those parties and partners who have been on this journey to light to come forward and light a candle to symbolize their part in the journey and their commitment to be part of lighting the way forward. I will indicate the parties represented, and they will be invited up in the order they are listed to light the candle. Representing former residents, who will be lighting the center candle off of which the other candles will be lit, Barbara Washington and Karen Day. Representing the Council of Parties, Deborah Emerson and Jean Flynn. Representing members from the Reflection and Action Task Group that has worked within the inquiry to ensure government's full participation in the inquiry, Tracy Tawil and Karen Hudson. Police representatives from both the RCMP and Halifax Regional Police, Chris Leather and Don McLean. Representing the African United Baptist Association, Reverend Dr. Rhonda Britton and Dr. Joyce Ross. Representing the former Home Board, Roger Smith. Representing the family of former residents, representing the impact on next generations, Denelda McIsaac and Marcus James. And representing students from Auburn Drive High School and the Hants North High School who wanted to be here but couldn't be here because of the weather. These students are representing a group of students who have been learning about the home in their class this term and represent the way forward in the future. You will find in your programs an introduction and overview of the inquiry, its founding principles, its mandate and process, and what's been learned and the way ahead. The restorative inquiry was not only about figuring out what was needed for a different way forward, it modeled a different way through its mandate and work. It is now my pleasure to invite members of the Council of Parties to offer some comments on the work of the inquiry. First, George Gray and Jennifer Llewellyn will share how the inquiry worked, followed by Chief Judge Pam Williams and Wayne Hamilton, who will share what the inquiry came to learn and understand about the pathway forward charted by the inquiry.
The restorative inquiry was designed and committed to taking it a different way forward. As you can see, the inquiry was different in who and how it was led. We commissioners have come to this process from different perspectives and experiences, from community and government, including former residents and those with close connections to the home. We have worked together collaboratively, and the strength of the relationships we have built and our shared commitment to this work has helped us to facilitate parties to work together within the processes. The Council of Parties approach our work differently than a traditional inquiry, in accordance with the restorative principles that have underpinned our work. We have facilitated collaboration to build shared responsibility for learning, understanding, and acting together. Over the past 4 years, we have held many processes through which we have brought together former residents, government leaders, public servants from across government, and other public agencies, young people in care and those who care about them, young people from the African Nova Scotian community, community-based agencies, professional groups including lawyers, social workers, and police, those closely connected to the home and African Nova Scotian community members. In fact, as we, the Council, parties, look out across the room, many of you have played some part in the processes and work of this inquiry, and for that we say thank you. Through these processes, we have shared truths with one another, learned together through, though often difficult and challenging dialogue, come to understand together what matters about what happened and what needs to happen next. We have come to appreciate our responsibilities for what has happened and for the work ahead to ensure a better future. Time and time again, through the processes, we have heard from many of you the significance of this important and different way of being together. How important it has been to break the silence about issues that are hard to talk about and to come together to hear one another in ways that is often difficult in government and in community.
This different approach the restorative inquiry took was essential to coming to understand the truth of what happened in the home and, importantly, why it happened. The approach allowed many different parties and individuals to come in non-defensive ways to share these truths, to build understanding, and to understand their very different perspectives. This was necessary because the history and the experience and the legacy of the home are complex. The home is not a simple story about a few bad actors or actions. Understanding the story of the home and what matters about it for the future required careful attention to the context, to the causes, to the circumstances that shaped the vision and the operation of the home and the experience of those who lived there. Through the inquiry, we came to understand the story of the home and the lessons it has to offer us about three central and very important issues: about how we respond to institutional abuse and other failures of care, the experience of children and youth in the systems of care, and here we mean all the systems and structures in government and community that are meant to ensure their well-being. And finally, that the story of the home is inescapably one about the historic and ongoing impacts of systemic racism on African Nova Scotians. The work of the inquiry was also structured differently. Our work progressed through three phases, and one built upon the next. The initial phase of the inquiry's work concentrated on building relationships between and among all of those connected to the home and to these central issues. It focused on supporting parties and participants to understand their relationships to the history and to the experience of the Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children and to one another in this experience. The second phase focused on learning and understanding. And during this phase, the inquiry brought together parties from different backgrounds and sectors and areas of focus to work collaboratively to seek broader and deeper understanding of the central issues. And this work was supported by extensive research on the history and experiences in the home. Our third phase was focused on planning and action. The commitment to support planning and action in real time during the inquiry marks one of the ways in which this restorative inquiry was different from traditional inquiries. The inquiry supported partners to begin the work needed to support the long-term and sustainable change on the journey forward.
Through the inquiry's attention to the three central issues, we were able to appreciate the complexity of the story of the home, its rich history, and the experiences of the home for what it can teach us about systemic racism in Nova Scotia. It has revealed the impact of our current ways of living and working in siloed, fragmented ways in both the community and in government. And just as Sankofa gathers the egg in its beak, we too have gathered. We've gathered the lessons and the knowledge that are important for us to move forward. But the mandate of inquiry did not end with finding facts from the past. And just like Sankofa's feet, we face forward to the future. The inquiry learned from the past, but it did it with the deliberate intention to make the learning and the knowledge meaningful and with purpose for the future. The inquiry examined the past to discern what matters and to address those central issues today and into the future. By paying attention to the experiences and needs of young children and families and communities, we received a deeper understanding of how systems make an impact on issues and on relationships. Participants examined the current system of care, responses to institutional abuse, and other failures of the care system through systemic racism. The inquiry undertook the research, the knowledge gathering, and held meetings and examined those processes with different parties, individuals, either by themselves or collectively, but all at the same time is in relationship to those three central issues. In this process, a critical insight emerged. We came to understand that the current system of care is generally oriented towards the logic and demands of the systems and not for humans. We are able to meet the needs of children, families, and children in care if we start with that journey of caring. However, it's going to require a shift in how we think and act towards each other, how we do these kinds of things. And this shift does call for more holistic and integrated ways of working together, for more collaborative processes that are centered on the needs of the most affected, and ensuring a central role for them in whatever decisions are made about their care. One of the most important and one of the most complex issues of the inquiry faced was articulating what's known to be systemic racism in the context of the home, in the context of government institutions, and in the community. We know systemic racism means when one group has the power to carry out systemic discrimination through institutional policies and practices. We know systemic racism thrives because the structures, the systems, the policies, the procedures, all of those institutions are founded on them, and then they are then promoted, they are reproduced, and they perpetuate advantages of one group over another. The norms, the values, or those standards make an assumption only by the dominant society to become the norm. and hence it perpetuates over and over. The inquiry's work exposed how that systemic racism thrived, knowingly and unknowingly. There were intersecting and overlapping and codependent policies, practices, and ideas, and the behaviors that allowed systemic racism to flourish. And many times, things left unsaid and undone.
I would like to spend a couple of minutes now talking about the way forward, as illustrated by the roadmap, which should be on the screen. There it is. And as you will see from the information sheet provided, and as reflected in our report, we have not provided a long list of recommendations that will serve as a check mark for what government or others should do. Instead, we've shared the call we've heard throughout the process for this fundamental shift in how we do things, and not just in the things that we do. We have reflected on the work done by and among the parties to discern and determine what this shift will require for responding to abuse and failures of care, for the system of care itself, and for addressing systemic racism. I want to stress that this has been a collaborative journey. As commissioners, we did not determine the way forward on our own. As part of the process, we supported action in real time and brought together those who will continue to carry this mandate forward to secure the necessary commitments and undertakings to plan for required action. Through this work, we have begun to map and travel this pathway forward to ensure the process will result in very real differences that the former residents hoped for in the lives of children, young people and their families, and community. So you see, what matters is not just about what we do, it's not a checklist, but it's about how we do the things that will make a difference. The elements outlined on the pathway forward are intended to ensure the journey to light continues through continued learning, continued understanding, and continued action. Through the inquiry, parties have developed a shared commitment to a shift focused on doing the right thing over simply doing things right, and to be more human-centered in our approach. From the outset, the work of the inquiry has been supported across parties and other traditional political divides and across government and community. So too the commitment needs is the need for a shift is not a matter of political ideology or perspective, but it's about an understanding of our shared humanity. An understanding of our shared humanity and collective responsibility to ensure just and caring relationships that flow from it. At its very core, this commitment to a different way is about the promises we make to each other and to our children, and to ensure the care and concern that they need and deserve. It is a commitment that speaks to who and how we want to be with one another.
I would now like to invite Premier Stephen McNeil and the leaders of the opposition parties, Gary Burrell, Tim Houston, to come forward with the co-chairs of the Council of Parties. The Premier will be presented the official submission of the final report of the inquiry from the Council of Parties to the government. The Premier will then light a candle to signify the government's continued commitment to the journey ahead. The other party leaders will then be invited to light a candle to signify their ongoing support on the way ahead. They will receive a copy of the report as well, following the lighting of their candle. It is now my pleasure to invite the Honorable Stephen McNeil, Premier of Nova Scotia, to offer his remarks.
What an extraordinary day, one filled with tremendous emotion. Oftentimes in my job, I'm filled with emotion, never ones that bring me tears of joy. I want to tell you, this has been a tremendous privilege in my life to have walked beside many of you as we started this journey towards healing. I can remember the first time that I heard the words, the home for colored children. I didn't even know the home existed, to be honest with you, and I was leader of the opposition in Nova Scotia. It was after 2010. The advice to me was, be careful what you say. It's a very difficult conversation, but be careful what you say. And I remember looking into the inquiry because it was about children, quite frankly. This home was about kids. And if any of you know anything about me, adults can have all the arguments they want, but when they take it out on children, then we have to have a conversation. And when I discovered, quite frankly, that we as a province, we as governments, we as community, had a home in our province for African Nova Scotians, that we provided less per diems, less training for the staff members there, and provided less per diems for the care of those kids. I believe that if we remain silent, we were continuing the journey of our ancestors, which is unacceptable. Faced with all of that, I didn't know a path forward. Then entered into my life were the residents of the home. And I want to say to all of you how proud I am of you, your commitment, your dedication, your strength, your understanding of our shared connection. I can tell you, if I'd been in your place, I'm not so sure I would be so generous. I'm not so sure that I would have been so willing to find a path forward. I would have understood your anger at governments, at all of us, at community, at your own community in some cases. I would have understood it. But then I ran into the generosity of all of you. I remember the first time that I met Tony on the streets outside Province House. This has been a day of tremendous reflection for me. I met Tony on the outside of Province House, and we had already had a number of conversations. I was not the Premier at the time. And I saw before me a determined, committed Nova Scotian who was dedicated not only to ensuring he healed himself, but to ensuring that all the residents' voices were heard, that no one was left behind, and our conversation continued. But I want to tell you, oftentimes I revert back to that, and I don't see the strong guy that's sitting up here in front of us, the determined guy. I see a young child that we left behind. But how grateful are we that the strength of his character has stood the test that all of us put in front of him to bring us to this day. And through him became the path that I knew would begin this healing. It wasn't the path of blame. Quite frankly, I, as your Premier, acknowledge it. I acknowledge the role my ancestors and ancestors of our province played in it, and the systemic racism in this province that has continued to live on. But when they provided us a path that allowed us not to assign blame, but to begin the healing process. And I want to say to all the institutions before us, law enforcement, government, all the institutions that played a role in this, judiciary, it's hard to look at the institution that you've been part of for a very long time and to say it's failed. But in order for the success of this journey to have been the great success it has been, all of us had to accept our collective responsibility. And in order for it to be successful, it meant that the institutions themselves had to look inward and come forward and be honest and open about what is taking place in those institutions. So thank you on behalf of a grateful province for stepping up and accepting the challenge to ensure, quite frankly, that we continue the path to healing. Let me tell you, this journey isn't over. This is just really the beginning of our journey. The process that we used to come to the final chapter on this particular journey is the process that we need to continue to use as we go forward. We started our process of Count Us In, which is one to ensure that African Nova Scotians recognize their part of this province going forward. Minister Ince and Wayne are part of that. We've had a conversation about using the process that we used in this particular case to ensure that all of our partners, they may be different ones that are part of this, but they need to be all of our partners who believe that we can find the solution from the grassroots up. That we can find the solutions in communities. I've had the privilege of being elected Premier. I didn't all of a sudden overnight get all the answers. The answers do lie in our communities that we make sure, because not only will we solve the solution, but quite frankly, we'll heal our communities. And that's this important journey that we're on. I want to tell you I am committed to dealing with this report and dealing with the issue of Count Us In and the issue of systemic racism in our province. This has been an emotional journey, really, for all of us. The conversations that happen in communities, the conversations that happen with residents. I'm going to tell you, it's been an emotional journey for me. I consider Tony a friend and will be a lifelong friend. A guy that I know I can count on when I need advice, quite frankly. I hope he believes he can count on me if he needs support. In my journey, I ran into a longtime friend of mine, Robert Borden. Robert and I were in high school together. And I remember when I found him as a resident of the home and the issues associated with the home, I called him and asked him why didn't he tell me. I'm not sure what I would have done, but he could have told me. I remember him in high school. He spent a number of years in Bridgetown. I remember him in high school. These athletic legs and this tremendous smile. But behind it, I had no idea what was happening in his life. But I can tell you in this journey, I understood the strength of the human character. Robert, I want to tell you in here, and my own siblings who all know you, what a tremendous man you have become, and a father in your perseverance. That's what's important, I believe, of being heard. I can't correct it, we can't fix everything that has gone wrong in our individual lives, but when we listen to each other, we understand the journey of each other, and we can fix the institutional challenges that are before us. Our institutions are important. The institutions of government matter, quite frankly. The institutions of the judiciary matter. Law enforcement matter. But they have to reflect who we are, and not the past or not the biases of the past. We have to be rooted in the understanding of today. And I, as your government, part of your government, am committed to ensuring that if there's a child in this province who comes into the care of your government, you at the very least have to have the commitment and understanding that they'll be cared for and loved and not hurt and harmed. We can do this. This is not something we're being asked to do that is insurmountable. It's not a mountain so high that none of us can climb it. It's asking us to respond to the needs and respond to the individual needs that each of us have. Be cared for, to be loved, making sure that something goes wrong, there's someone there to pick us up. To make sure that if we do something wrong, we say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, how can we fix it, how can I help you heal? That's what's being asked of us today. That's our collective journey as we leave this room. Learn from what's happened in our past, accept our individual roles and our institutional roles in it, and then commit to this generation of Nova Scotians. We are counting on you to hold us accountable. We're counting on you to make sure that we live up to what was expected of us and live up to the aspirations and the goals of our committee. It is up to you. And as I finish my remarks, let's give thanks to the generation and the shoulders that we stood on to get to this point. There are a lot of people in this room or who are not in this room who had a very difficult journey. And we are standing on their shoulders. Let's not forget that. The decisions that I make impact my parents who are no longer here. The decisions that you've made, the strength that you've shown in this journey is because you stood on the shoulders of your ancestors who showed tremendous strength to stay in a province and communities who oftentimes didn't want them, oftentimes discriminated against them, but they were determined. They were determined that this province was going to change, and either the next generation or a future generation was going to receive their just reward, which is an equal partner in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Premier, for those extremely powerful remarks. When the restorative inquiry was established, it began with an apology from the Nova Scotia government and a commitment. The Premier said in his apology, as Nova Scotians, as a people walking together, we must do better. An apology is not a closing of the books, but a recognition that we must cast an unflinching eye on the past as we strive toward a better future. The commitment then is clear. The apology acknowledged the failures of the past and also committed to a different future. It committed to walk together as we have through the inquiry and will continue to do in the way ahead to create that better future. It is vital in support of this commitment to a different future that the learning and understanding achieved by looking back at the home through the restorative inquiry be shared broadly with the African Nova Scotian community and, importantly, with all Nova Scotians. As a part of the pathway forward, parties have worked through the inquiry to develop the DOOR project, Digital Oral Histories for Reconciliation. A project that supports students to learn about the history and experience of the home as part of the grade 11 curriculum. It includes the opportunity for students to hear from former residents through a virtual reality experience and to consider what this history means for them through a restorative approach to learning. This virtual reality experience and the report and the videos from the inquiry will also serve as a basis for all of us to learn more about the home and its significance through an exhibition that will be developed at the Black Cultural Center. It is now my pleasure to invite to the stage Karen Hudson, principal of Auburn Drive High School, the site of one of the pilots of the DOOR project last month, and Russell Gross from the Black Cultural Center to say a few words about the importance of these aspects of the pathway forward for continued learning and action. They will be joined on stage by the Deputy Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development, Kathy Montroy, and Deputy Minister of Communities, Culture, Heritage, Justin Houston, and Shakima Johnson, a student from the class at Auburn Drive High School. Microphones.
All right. Oh, there we go. It's my pleasure to be part of this ceremony. Auburn Drive High Afrocentric Cohort class participated in the DOOR project last month for 2 weeks. Students had the opportunity to learn about this important aspect of the history of our African Nova Scotian people and the role of the province played. Learning about the Nova Scotian home through the first voice was impactful and critical to their awareness. Students took a restored approach and were guided by the principal Sankofa to examine the past and learn ways to improve our society for the future. Students have made a commitment to enhance their learning in order to ensure that this never occurs again. And also, as part of the students, we've decided to develop some T-shirts that we'd like to give to the former residents as part of our way of moving forward. It represents the Sankofa bird, and in order to go forward, we also need to know our past.
Today is a historic day for all Nova Scotians. The Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia owes much of its history to the home as it sits on land that was donated by the home many years ago to protect, preserve, and promote the important history of African Nova Scotians. We are committed to continue this work in collaboration to establish a permanent exhibition on the history and experience of the home at the Black Cultural Center. This is an important part of Nova Scotia's history, and we need to ensure that for future generations it's not forgotten and is always remembered. We want to move ahead as the inquiry has moved ahead, to continue to move forward in this province.
I would now invite former residents Tracy Dorrington Skinner, Tony Smith, and Jerry Morrison back to the stage to present the original Sankofa talking piece used by former residents at their first retreat and throughout the restorative inquiry process to the Black Cultural Center to guide continued learning and understanding.
I just want to say Tracy is a co-founder of Voices. When we had our first reunion in 2012 with former residents, introduced us to Sankofa. And how fitting that it's not taboo to go back to your past nor move on in the future, because it's a delicate topic here. When we made the transition from that, we finally got and advocated for this inquiry. When it came to the council, restorative inquiry coming together, Tracy gave that to me to say, to keep it for your journey. And I said, we're going to use it, continue with the symbol. And I said, when we're done this inquiry, we want to give it to the Black Cultural Center. So I think it's only fitting for me to give it back to Tracy, so that Tracy can give it to the Institute of the Black Cultural.
When the former residents began to speak their truth, tell their stories, and lift their voices, I doubt they would have ever have imagined a day like today, where their journey to light would so effectively dispel shame and transform our community. I think about my late grandmother, Kay Howe, and all the former residents that have passed on, who now make up in part that great cloud of witnesses, encouraging us to throw off that which so easily entangles us, and encouraging us to run with perseverance the course set out before us. Entangled by silence, no more. Participants in this restorative inquiry have established for us a roadmap in how to have difficult conversations and transformative ones. As a community, we are not at the finish line, but we look forward to the next leg of the race.
In May of this year, the staff that I work with at ANSA, we spent time discussing and planning what role we could play about bringing a restorative approach to the community. So we decided to support this journey to light by creating what we think is hopefully a safe environment to have a dialogue about healing and not laying blame. A space for us, by us. So it was decided to roll out in 2020 what we're calling several restorative workshops that we want to have across the province. The intention is that these workshops will be designed to allow community members and community organizations to practice the tools of restorative approaches, which are to be used, in our opinion, for community conversations, but also for conflict resolution. Our hope is to have that dialogue with community organizations, between community organizations, and among community organizations. We also want community members individually to join us on this journey to practice those things called restorative ways. We believe the investment of effort and time is important for our community to take ownership of the healing, to work towards a better relationship amongst ourselves. The information that I just talked about will be soon up on our website in ANSA in the new year. But before we close, I'd like to ask if Minister Ince could come to say a closing statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. The restorative inquiry has been a long journey, but a journey guided by strength, dedication, and resilience. As a government, we had to come to terms with the harms caused by the home, and it was a very emotional journey. A journey that we fully accepted. To the Council of Parties and to the former voices, thank you for allowing us to be on this journey to light with you. The work of the restorative inquiry has allowed us to listen, to learn, and to understand. We are on a path that will allow us to build true relationships with the Nova Scotians who have been affected by this story. And it helps us and allows us to put children and families first. Our government has been committed and walking along this journey from the very beginning. And we remain committed to carrying out the work. I ask each of us, as we leave here today, to commit to that journey to light with the residents and all of us in the community. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We've come to the end of our program. So I'd ask that you stand while His Honor, the Honorable Arthur J. LeBlanc, Lieutenant Governor, takes his leave. The Council of Parties are going to be drummed out. And finally, and following that, the wall at the back of the room is going to open, and we hope that you can join us for a reception in just a few moments. Thank you.